Dear Future Pharmacist, let's get you ready for the one thing that stands between you and a job, and that is an interview. Now, as someone who has interviewed for a lot of positions and someone who has also interviewed people for positions, I think it makes me confidently qualified to provide you with some tips. Now, this video is going to be about interview mindset to kind of get you mentally, emotionally prepared before you even go in there. So you're going to see me look down. I have my notes. Let's get into it. The first thing I want to start off with is a no today is not a no tomorrow. And I think that is so important to remember, because not every opportunity or every position is your opportunity or your position. I believe in timing. Timing matters so much. And what I see a lot of times is that people will apply for a position, they will not get it, and then they will never circle back around. It's either one of two things. You have that subset of people, or you have people who just keep getting denied from the position and they just keep applying. And I like the latter. I think you have to understand that a no today is not a no tomorrow. People evolve, companies restructure, and you gain, or people gain, experience, and that matters. Timing. Every position is not your position, or every opportunity is not your opportunity, and you have to understand that as well. You could feel like it's the best opportunity for you. It checks all of your boxes. Every position is not your position. You have to get comfortable with rejection. You have to get comfortable with putting yourself out there, and you can't sweat it. You can't let it mentally bind you. You just have to know that it's a part of the game and let it roll off your skin. So get comfortable very early in your career with rejection. The earlier, the better off you will be. Be yourself. Be yourself. That is such a huge, it sounds so simple, but it is so real. Be yourself. Represent yourself, who you are. Don't pretend. Because you don't want to get in there and represent yourself as this really bubbly person, pretend to be this really bubbly person, and then that's not who you are. Because now the interviewer is expecting this really outgoing, extroverted, bubbly personality, people person that, you know, maybe they have a team that they're building and they really need that component, and they've hired you, and that you're really introverted, you don't like talking to people. That is not who you are at all. You don't have this bubbly personality. You actually have a very even keel temperament, and for whatever reason now you don't fit, or you're not meeting the expectations of what they expected to hire, or you have to go in and pretend to be this person that you're not for 40 hours out of your week. That's uncomfortable and not good for you and your mental health, and it's not comfortable and good for people who are hiring you. And that's not to say that you can't evolve and you can't change and all of the things, but at your core, just be yourself. You don't know what the organization that you are applying for is looking for, and unfortunately you're not gonna know. Even if you have some sort of insight, you just really aren't gonna know unless you have a direct pipeline to the person who's making the hiring decisions, and they've told you, like, this is what our team looks like, and this is what we need, and this is what we're looking for, and really got down into the nitty-gritty of everything. You're not probably going to be privy to that knowledge. And so if they already have a team, or if they're putting together a team, that's going to be important, right? Like, if they already have a team, then they're just trying to find somebody to complement what they already have going on. But if they're building a team, they may be looking for a specific quality. Being yourself, authentically yourself, speaking truthfully about your experiences and what you can bring to the team, and your strengths and your weaknesses and all of the things, because you're just not going to be privy to the information of what they already have, what they need specifically and what they want. And that's going to look very differently based on a few different factors. So I wouldn't even focus on really what that is. I would have a basic kind of general understanding of what the role is and what they very surface level have and what they're looking for. Best thing that you can do for yourself in regards to this aspect is to be yourself, and what will align for you, what is meant to align for you, will align for you. Be confident. Be confident in the experience that you have or the lack of experience, because you don't know, again, what they are looking for, what they need. You could be the piece of the puzzle that's missing. You just never know. The most experience isn't always what they need. They are not. A lot of times the person who brings a lot of experience to an organization also brings a lot of baggage and lack of willingness to evolve or see things differently. So experience brings its own set of challenges. So don't think just because you don't have the experience that you automatically cannot contend with another opponent. You don't know, especially if you've landed the interview. So if you've got the interview, go in, be confident. Dress comfortably. This may be controversial. This is a personal philosophy. I think if you look good, you feel good, and if you feel good, you're gonna do good. That's just personal. So I prefer my candidates to feel good about how they are presenting versus what society says that you should wear. Best advice I would give is find something very in the middle. If I had to give you some advice, I think you can never go wrong in your wardrobe with having a basic white collared shirt that's a button up and a nice pair of trousers, navy blue, black, khaki, just nice trousers, nice shirt, nice plain white shirt. Make sure you're groomed to your standards. Be comfortable with how you're representing yourself, whatever that means to you. And I say you don't have to be super professional, but dress super professionally dressed, business casual, but find something nice in the middle. I think you can never go wrong, especially if you're a pharmacist. At this point, getting a suit or some nice slacks, a white shirt, just go ahead and have it in your wardrobe. If it's a retail position, some nice basic white black sneakers, because retail we stand, we're not really wearing fancy shoes, but people also will get some Clarks that look really nice and they're professional and all of the things. So research the organization and see if their values align with your values. I think it's a good idea to do this because I'm almost certain that in some way they're going to ask you, why did you apply for this position, or why this company, or tell me what you know about this company. And you don't want to be sitting there looking like a deer in headlights. You want to come in and you want to give off that you are prepared, that you know that you align with this company, you know your values align with this company, you know, and why that is. Why? How? What are they? Know those very generally. I say with anything, you should kind of have like some trigger words in your mind that if someone says something, you can kind of easily pull that word out and then talk about an experience or a subject or whatever from that one word. Have some time to really sit with yourself and understand what it is that you want, where you see yourself now, where you would like to go. And if you don't know, that's okay, but be honest about that. Practice interview with a friend. One common thing that when I interview, a challenge for people is if someone asks a question and you're not able to articulate an answer. So if I ask you, how do you prioritize your workflow? Everything in the pharmacy is high priority, so I just do what's next. That's not the question. Now, if you genuinely don't have an answer for that, right? Like if that's the first thing that comes to mind, or if that's really your general approach, the way we can kind of make it more specific, in my experience, I've worked with a lot of systems that guide you in the direction of where you should be, whether it is with color coding. I normally focus my workflow based off of the system's timing. Now, in the pharmacies that I've worked in, we've also had designated positions. So if I'm at a position, I like to know, what is the organization's backup. So if I am at drive-through, then I am also backup for field. Or if I'm at field, I'm also backup for the register, because priorities are ever changing in such a fast-paced environment. So I want to make sure that I'm doing what the lead would have me to do. So that's a way that you can give a more specific answer that gives the individual interviewing you some insight into your mind, the type of person you are, what are your critical skills. Do you have any critical skills? Be prepared for a little quiz or a little test. Now, I don't think it's common practice, but I've been on interviews. I was given a very short quiz. They wanted to see basically if I had the aptitude for the position, so I wouldn't be too afraid if you got something like that. I can't really tell you how to prepare for that. I think it's going to depend on what environment you're interviewing for. In my case, I had interviewed for a clinical inpatient pharmacy position, and it was just trying to see if I knew how to triage certain things or respond in certain very specific situations. So it was they created very specific parameters and then kind of asked me, okay, well, what would you do? How would you handle this? And listen, I haven't always been a good interviewer, or I haven't done well on every interview that I've gone on. As a matter of fact, one of the first interviews that I had gone on right out of pharmacy school, not right out, but I was pretty new as a pharmacist, was for an inpatient position, and I did not research that specific hospital. Actually, I was confused. I thought the position that I was applying for was like their outpatient pharmacy, and I think it was inpatient, so I hadn't researched that particular facility to know that it was a stroke hospital. And so they were asking me these questions about stroke, and I just didn't know, honestly. And one of my colleagues was on the panel, and she was trying to help me out. Poor thing, poor me. And I was like, listen, I bombed that interview so bad. I reached out to her. I was like, listen, tell them don't call me back. Don't reach out to me. It's just, it is not good for us. They asked me questions about things on my resume. I had a pharmacy technician training program that I owned and I operated. They wanted to know my pass rate and all of the things, and I just wasn't prepared for some of those questions. So I will say, if you've submitted some prior work experience or a resume or whatever's on your application, you want to be able to speak in depth to those experiences, even if they're very surface or very vague. The experience that you had, you were there at the job very briefly, it wasn't involved, you worked at Walgreens, but you worked at Walgreens on the front end and not back in the pharmacy. Like, you still have some experience that you can kind of speak to. Expect that to come up. Expect them to ask you about what you're willing to accept, if you have hard stops. So kind of have a number in mind for that. I'm not the best person to talk about negotiating, because I'm very much like, I will hard stop if something is not in my range. I'm not gonna do a whole bunch of back and forth with that. I'm just gonna be like, yeah, they're not going to be able to meet my expectations, and I just kind of leave it alone. And that could be a personal weakness or a flaw, but that's just personally. Everybody at this point knows to be prepared for a strength and weakness question. They're going to ask you, what are some strengths, what are some weaknesses. My personal favorite question to ask is, what did you do to prepare for this interview, and what is your favorite position in the pharmacy? Every person that I've asked that question to, almost every single one of them says field. I will tell you, the one position that I feel like would ding 100% be an asset, they would 100% start and write it out, would be data entry. Because you really have to, but don't say it just to get the job. You have to say it and mean it, because if you tell me that you like data entry, somewhere along the line you come down and say I hate data entry, and I understand you reserve the right, I'm gonna be looking like, well, I thought you liked data entry. What happened? So yeah, until next time, guys. Bye.